After going through all these meme decks that I play, like Skittles and Wart, I figured it would be a good time to show what I play for fun. And a lot of people on MTGS and the WotC boards have been requesting this particular deck list, especially people who have seen me play it on Cockatrice, because this is one of the most unusual decks I've played. Most people who have seen Basandra as a general expect her to be played as a finisher in an aggro shell, but I'm doing something a little bit more along the lines of what Wizards of the Coast intended to be done with her as far as making her a commander. And this is making her the centerpiece of a red-white control deck. Yes, you heard me, red-white control. The mana base being enemy colors is pretty simple. We don't have a whole lot of options. Just, for the most part, your dual lands, Battlefield Forge, Boros Garrison, fetches. I only have one giant in the entire deck, so Ancient Amphitheater is basically a comes-into-play tap dual land, which isn't a bad thing in this format. Using that Clifftop Retreat that I pulled out of my box. The Isolated Chapel, unfortunately, I had to trade, because somebody was overvaluing it at Friday Night Magic. I think I got like 9 in trade for it, and it's worth 7. Duels. Mistveil Plains is in here to really abuse Sunforger, because when you search for something and then put it on the bottom with Sunforger, you can go get it again. And it's actually possible to lock a person out of their combat phase completely with it. Smoldering Crater because it's a cycling land. I've got Terrain Generator, which is an often overlooked land for 1 and 2 color decks, because it puts you ahead on mana. Especially in monocolor decks where you're running upwards of 30 basics. I've got Reliquary Tower, because I'm a control deck, and no max hand size. And I also play Desert. You'll see exactly the reason why I play Desert. It looks like a really bad card, but in this deck it actually works. And the rest of the deck is just a pile of basic lands, plains and mountains. The main win condition of this deck involves restricting people's combat phases. Early on in the game, what you want to do is make it as hard as possible for your opponents to attack, specifically attacking you. The main win condition of the deck is Repercussion. It reads, whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So what you do is you cast that, and then you make it a pain in the butt to attack you. You play things like Light Minefield, Circle of Flame. Yes, that's a Ballista Squad. I know it's bad, but it's actually great in this deck, because you can pick off attackers with it. Like, force a creature to attack with Basandra and then shoot it off. It's not very mana efficient, but it does fit the deck well. I have Power Stone Minefield, which deals 2 damage to any creature that attacks or blocks. I have... where is it? I have Orification, which turns every creature that deals damage to you into a wall. I have Stuffy Doll, whose main purpose is to, 1, deter people from attacking you, and its other main purpose is to walk through a Power Stone Minefield and explode somebody's face. Repercussion I discussed at length. Caltrops is a colorless mini Power Stone, but it only works for attacking creatures. I have Kazul, which is really interesting because when you force a creature to attack with Basandra, normally a forced attack can't make you pay costs for, say, Windborn Muse, which I do play in this deck, I just haven't gotten to it yet. But unlike all the other ones, this one actually can make them get you a 3/3, because the default action is what gives you the token, not paying the 3. So it's not a cost to attack, it's just a cost to avoid getting the token. It's really strange, but that's the way it works. I have Wall of Nets, which has the magical 7 toughness that I've talked about before. being able to block 0/6s. If only this thing flew, it would be amazing, but it doesn't, sadly. I have Windborn Muse, which I discussed at length. I have Brigid, Hero of Kinsbale, which deals damage to all attacking or blocking creatures across the board. Absolutely fantastic in this deck, especially when paired with Repercussion. You can deal 10, 12, 14 damage all at once. And I have Elite Archers, which is a weaker version of Ballista Squad. Now with Repercussion, one of the problems with making people attack is that your own creatures are vulnerable to the damage from your Power Stones and such, and you can wind up dealing a lot of damage to yourself. This is why I play things like Light of Sanction, which this is a card that you won't see played in any other deck. It just says your creatures don't take repercussion damage, so you don't take repercussion damage. Mark of Asylum is a more efficient way of doing the same thing, but it was printed later rather than sooner, so obviously it's more powerful with the way Wizards has been just power creeping the game. And then Runetail, of course Runetail, because almost every white creature deck, and this deck should be playing Runetail because, well, it's ridiculous. It flips right away when you cast it, unless you cast it late game. Now, once you've got all these attack deterrents set up, one of the ways to win is just making people's creatures attack into this nonsense you've set up. Basandra can do that herself, but I have other ways of doing it as well. And my favorite one to cast after setting up is Grand Melee. This is a card that gets played in like Crazy Enchantment or any kind of group huggy deck, but I actually use it the way it was intended to be used. It really ends games fast because it makes people attack, and because they have all these attack deterrents, people generally are attacking other people instead of you, and that's one of the main ways this deck wins, is it's just way too hard to attack you, and if I have to attack, I'm going to attack somebody else. So your opponents often end up killing each other before they can get to you, because it just takes way too much resources for them to dedicate even one or two creatures to you. I have Avatar of Slaughter, which is an 8/8 double striker that makes all creatures attack. I have Rage Nimbus, which is a 5/3 flying blocker that can make creatures attack. I have War's Toll, which is, I'm not going to lie, this is a really annoying card, and I hate to be on the other side of this because it really makes you plan out your turn. Generally what I do in the casual table is say, you can only use your mana during one step of the turn. You don't have to actually float your mana in response and declare what you're floating. I just say, if you use any mana during a phase of your turn at end of, or step of your turn at end of step, all your mana is tapped. I have a new Innistrad card called Curse of the Nightly Hunt, which makes all creatures target opponent controls attack if able. I have Gideon, which makes does the same thing as Curse of the Nightly Hunt, but has other things it can do as well. And I have Fumiko the Lowblood. Originally, the Repercussion deck was supposed to feature her as a general, but being in red, the only ways I had to tutor for Repercussion were Planar Portal, which was extremely slow, and Gamble, which was unreliable. Not to mention I didn't have that many tutors in the deck to begin with. So I ended up changing the deck to red-white because, for one, Basandra is my favorite angel in the game, and she's just completely badass with her weapon of choice. Now, moving on to the rest of the deck, I have, being a control deck, I have to play some draw, but I'm not in the colors for draw, so my options are really limited. I'm having to play all the artifact draw, Howling Mine, Mind's Eye, Temple Bell, and Fauna Mythos. And being in red, I have to play Wheel of Fortune, because, well, it's Wheel of Fortune, it's 7 cards. The other unique thing about being able to play red-white is you get access to Sunforger. I believe that Sunforger is the most powerful equipment in the format. Even more powerful than Skullclamp, even more powerful than Lightning Greaves. Sunforger lets you run a really toolboxy removal suite, such as this one. I have Orm's Thunder, which basically reads white-red to destroy target creature and destroy target artifact or enchantment. This also plays really well with Repercussion, because you hit a creature with damage, and then you hit that creature's controller for that much damage. I have Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, because those should automatically go in any white deck. I have Idyllic Tutor, which isn't part of the package, but I couldn't find another set of cards to group it with. It basically says Tutor for Repercussion or Tutor for Power Stone Minefield. Wild Ricochet is an amazing card to run in a Sunforger package, because you can take people's like Time Stretches, Tooth and Nails, just big spells. Debt of Loyalty is a really overlooked gem for the format, and it costs 3, so it fits into Sunforger. What it does is it doesn't say what it does on the card. The creature actually has to regenerate through Debt of Loyalty for you to gain control of it. But it's basically a WW1 control magic. I play Oblation because Oblation's a fantastic tuck spell, as is Chaos Warp. I love Chaos Warp. The Oblation and the Chaos Warp are mainly to get rid of annoying things like Ensnaring Bridge, which otherwise completely shut the deck down, as its entire game plan revolves around manipulating combat. I have Reiterate in here. Reiterate's really good because not only is it fetchable with Sunforger, but if you activate Sunforger with it, you can actually buy it back because you're still casting it, and it will go to your hand instead of your graveyard. I have Master Warcraft, which is the ultimate combat manipulation spell. Unfortunately, you don't get to choose what opponents or what planeswalkers the creatures are attacking, but you do get to choose which creatures are attacking and how creatures block. So at worst, it's a fog, but most of the time you can use it to set up really unfair trades. I have Retaliate. Now, normally you would think you could only cast this spell during combat, and because Basandra restricts you from casting spells during combat, I decided when I was building this deck to not play any spells that could only be cast during combat, which lets me, unfortunately, miss out on some of the best spells in red-white, such as Captain's Maneuver. And I have Enlightened Tutor because Enlightened Tutor is another way to find Repercussion. It can find pretty much any key card in the deck. I was really tempted to put Isochron Scepter in here, but I just don't have the space for it. All of my board wipes are damage-based so that they can interact with Repercussion. Chain Reaction is my main way of killing people. If I cast a Repercussion and then cast Chain Reaction, usually everyone at the table dies. I have Inferno, which is an instant speed wrath. 6 damage to everything. Usually winds up killing a couple of people, especially if they don't have a lot of life. I've got Pyrohemia, which is a red pestilence. Really underrated in this format. And if you have one creature and a Mark of Asylum or a Light of Sanction, you can actually never have to sacrifice Pyrohemia, and you'll have just fantastic board control. Have Slagstorm, which is an early wrath. I used to play Volcanic Fallout as part of the Sunforger package, but I decided to take it out. I have Earthquake, which is just another board wipe. I would really like to play Fault Line in here because it's an instant, but I can't seem to find one locally. I'll probably have to trade for one online. And this is my new favorite card for Basandra out of Innistrad, called Blasphemous Act. It usually costs about 3 or 4 to play, and it does 13 damage to each creature. That's 13 damage per creature to the players if you have Repercussion out. This card will kill the entire table if you have your deck set up correctly. I also forgot to mention that I play Furnace of Wrath in this deck, which interacts really nicely with Repercussion. Because what happens, if you control Repercussion and Furnace of Wrath, the damage that would be dealt to a creature is replaced with double that damage, and then when Repercussion triggers, it doubles the damage again. So if you deal, say, 6 damage to each creature with a Furnace of Wrath, that'll deal 12 damage to each creature and 24 damage to each creature's controller. And that usually is lethal. The rest of the deck is just mana rocks and miscellaneous stuff. Like Soul Ring should be in every deck, Mind Stone, Marble Diamond, and Solemn Simulacrum. I need as much card advantage as I can get. And then I have a few other things like Sunblast Angel, which is absolutely amazing after playing Gideon. You just wrath someone's creatures. I play Radiate, because it's not that it's good, but it's a lot of fun. And you can actually do a pretty good impression of Warp World by radiating your own Chaos Warp. And I have had to do that before. If you do end up doing that, I would really recommend only shuffling if the card doesn't go to the battlefield, because it's assumed that the deck is already randomized. If you want to play it by the book, then you'll have to shuffle in between each and every permanent. And it's extremely annoying to do, and it's hard on your sleeves. I'm playing Humility in here. This is a new addition to the deck, because it a couple people suggested this to me, because it interacts really nicely with Caltrops and Power Stone Minefield. Since I only have to deal the creatures 1 damage, it basically says, with this and Caltrops or Power Stone, if a creature attacks, destroy it. I have Greater Oromancy to protect my enchantments, because everybody is going to want to blow up my enchantments when I have my setup. I have Sun Titan in here almost specifically just to recur Repercussion in case it gets blown up. I have Varchild's War Riders in here. And it's not immediately clear why this card is in the deck. I'd also like to play Forbidden Orchard, but I don't have one yet. The reason why I'm playing this card in here is not that it's a body, but because I give my opponents tokens. One thing I've noticed when I have Repercussion on the table is that people tend to not want to play creatures because they don't want them to get blown up and take a bunch of damage. So I will have this and Forbidden Orchard in the deck to give people 1/1s that they won't be able to attack with anyway. And once you have Repercussion on the table, creatures tend to be a liability. Hunted Dragon is in here for the same reason, because it gives the opponent 3 2/2s. You have a 6/6 flyer with haste, and those knights can't swing back because they'll just get blown up by the Power Stone Minefield. The last card in my deck is more in here because it's funny, but just like Blasphemous Act, Into the Maw of Hell does deal 13 damage to a creature, which will in turn deal 13 damage to a player off Repercussion, and it blows up things like Maze of Ith and just annoying lands. This deck is far from competitive and won't hold up well in tournament level play. But if you want a unique deck to take to your kitchen table that plays cards you won't find anywhere else, I would recommend I would recommend playing this deck. Give it a try on Cockatrice. Give it a try at your kitchen table. It's not even that expensive of a deck to build. And it's Basandra. Her weapon of choice is just awesome.